Imagine setting sail to become one of the first people to cross Antarctica. You're part of an elite expedition. The journey is supposed to make history. The ship is strong, the crew is experienced, and the world is watching. Then the ocean freezes around you. Your ship becomes trapped. Weeks pass, then months. The ice tightens. The wooden hull begins to groan. Crack, snap, crunch. Eventually, the ship is crushed like a toy. Suddenly, you're stranded in one of the most hostile places on Earth. No rescue is coming. No radio can save you. No one even knows exactly where you are. Thousands of miles from civilization, surrounded by endless ice, with temperatures far below freezing. Most people would assume the story ends there, but it didn't. Because the leader of the expedition was a man named Ernest Shackleton. And what happened next would become one of the greatest survival stories ever told. The year was 1914. The world was entering a new age of exploration. Large portions of Antarctica remained unexplored. Many believed the continent's greatest challenge was still waiting to be conquered. Crossing Antarctica from coast to coast. It would be one of the most difficult journeys ever attempted. Ernest Shackleton intended to be the man who did it. Shackleton was already famous. He had participated in previous Antarctic expeditions. He understood the dangers better than almost anyone alive. Yet he believed his crew could accomplish something extraordinary. To make the journey possible, he acquired a specially designed ship called the Endurance. It was built to withstand polar conditions. Its thick wooden hull was designed to resist crushing ice. If any ship could survive Antarctica, many believed it was Endurance. In August 1914, Shackleton and his crew departed. There were 28 men aboard. Sailors, scientists, engineers, navigators. Every one of them knew they were heading into one of the harshest environments on Earth. At first, the voyage went according to plan. The ship pushed south toward Antarctica. Icebergs drifted across the ocean. Temperatures dropped. The landscape became increasingly frozen. Then everything changed. In January 1915, the Endurance entered the Weddell Sea. Pack ice surrounded the vessel. The crew attempted to navigate through openings in the ice, but the gaps became smaller and smaller, until eventually the ship could move no farther. The ice had trapped them. At first, nobody panicked. After all, the Endurance had been built for situations exactly like this. The crew expected the ice to break apart eventually. They simply needed to wait. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The ice never released its grip. Instead, the ship drifted wherever the frozen sea carried it. The men watched as Antarctica's winter approached. Darkness increased. Temperatures plunged, and the pressure surrounding the vessel continued to grow. The frozen sea was alive. Massive sheets of ice pushed against one another with incredible force. Sometimes the crew could hear the sounds at night. Booms, cracks, grinding noises echoing across the frozen wilderness. Then the pressure reached the ship itself. The wooden hull began bending. Timbers twisted. Planks cracked. The ice was winning. By October 1915, the situation had become hopeless. The Endurance was being crushed. The crew watched helplessly as their ship slowly broke apart. Months of preparation. Years of planning. Everything they had brought with them. Destroyed. Eventually, Shackleton made the decision. The men abandoned ship. Soon afterward, the Endurance disappeared beneath the ice. Now the crew faced an even greater challenge. They weren't explorers anymore. They were survivors. The men established camp on the drifting ice. Their new home was a frozen platform floating across the Antarctic seas. Every day became a struggle. Food had to be carefully rationed. The weather constantly threatened them. The ice beneath their feet could crack apart without warning. And they had no idea when rescue might arrive. If rescue ever arrived at all. Yet Shackleton understood something important. The expedition's goal no longer mattered. Crossing Antarctica was finished. Now there was only one mission: bring everyone home alive. It sounds simple, but keeping 28 men alive in those conditions required extraordinary leadership. Shackleton constantly monitored morale. He assigned routines, maintained structure, prevented hopelessness from taking over. Whenever problems emerged, he dealt with them immediately. The men later recalled how determined he remained, even when the situation appeared impossible. Months passed. Eventually, the drifting ice began breaking apart. Staying on it was becoming too dangerous. The crew launched their lifeboats. For days, they battled freezing seas. Waves crashed over the small boats. Ice floated all around them. The men were exhausted, cold, and hungry. Yet they continued rowing. Finally, they reached land. A barren, rocky place called Elephant Island. For the first time in nearly 500 days, the crew stood on solid ground. It should have been a moment of celebration. Instead, it created a new problem. Elephant Island was uninhabited. No shipping routes passed nearby. No settlements existed. No one would find them there. They were alive, but still stranded. Shackleton realized that waiting meant death. Someone would have to leave. Someone would have to sail across one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean on Earth. The destination was South Georgia Island, over 800 miles away. The journey would be made in a small lifeboat called the James Caird. The plan sounded insane. The boat was only about 22 feet long. The Southern Ocean was famous for enormous waves, hurricane-force winds, and freezing temperatures. Many sailors considered it among the most dangerous waters on Earth. But there was no alternative. In April 1916, Shackleton selected 5 companions. Among them was navigator Frank Worsley. The 6 men loaded supplies into the James Caird. Then they pushed away from Elephant Island. The men left behind watched the tiny boat disappear into the distance. No one knew if they would ever see them again. The voyage was brutal. Towering waves slammed into the boat. Water constantly flooded the interior. Ice formed on the vessel. Strong winds threatened to overturn it at any moment. For over 2 weeks, the crew fought to survive. Meanwhile, Worsley performed incredible navigational calculations using only brief glimpses of the sun between clouds. A tiny error could send them hundreds of miles off course, in an ocean that offered no second chances. Then, after more than 800 miles at sea, they spotted land. South Georgia. Against all odds, they had made it. But the challenge wasn't over. The men had landed on the wrong side of the island. Massive mountains and glaciers stood between them and the whaling stations that could provide rescue. No one had ever crossed the island's interior before. Shackleton and 2 companions began the trek. They climbed over mountains, traversed glaciers, and navigated terrain no human had previously crossed. After more than 36 continuous hours of travel, they finally reached a whaling station. The workers could barely believe what they were seeing. The exhausted men looked almost unrecognizable. Yet they had done it. Now came the final mission: rescue the rest of the crew. Several attempts were blocked by ice, but Shackleton refused to give up. Again and again, he tried. Finally, in August 1916, a rescue ship reached Elephant Island. The stranded men saw the vessel approaching. Nearly 2 years had passed since the Endurance first became trapped. Shackleton anxiously counted the survivors. One by one, every single man was there. All 28 members of the expedition had survived. Not a single life had been lost. It remains one of the most astonishing survival achievements in history. The crew endured shipwreck, starvation, isolation, Antarctic winters, drifting ice, and some of the most dangerous seas on Earth. Yet everyone came home. Today, the Endurance expedition is studied around the world. Not because it successfully crossed Antarctica. It didn't. The original mission failed. But something even more remarkable happened. When disaster struck, Ernest Shackleton refused to abandon his people. He adapted, made difficult decisions, and kept hope alive when none seemed possible. That's why more than a century later, his story is still remembered. Because leadership isn't tested when everything goes according to plan. Leadership is tested when everything goes wrong. And few people have ever faced a challenge greater than Ernest Shackleton. His ship was destroyed. His expedition failed. Yet somehow he achieved something far more impressive. He brought every single one of his men home alive. And that turned a disaster into one of history's greatest survival stories. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more incredible true stories from history.